Thank you very much. So great to be here again, and I see some known faces, and glad to see you again. And hopefully tonight, and when we meet over dinner, where's the beamer? The clicker. It's over here. What I'm talking about is digital transformation. What can we learn from each other, and especially which typical mistakes are done in our industry? I've seen a lot of companies in our industry. I'm talking to a lot of companies. I'm in boards of many companies in our industry. So what I'm trying to do here is to summarize 12 theses to which kind of mistakes we usually do and how can we avoid them. First of all, let's start. We all know the good times are gone. We had these little ads in the past, and they became bigger and bigger. It was easy. The bigger it was, the more we earned, and the bigger the customer was, the more he got out of his customers. We all know that has become much more difficult. We don't like it, and also our customers don't like it. We shouldn't forget that. So we had to change our business, and we still do. Because one thing we know, the customer, the SME, is confused. He needs somebody who explains what to do. I think we all know that, but on the other hand, just ask yourself or ask a customer, just any customer, if he knows the difference between SEM and SEO. Not a big deal for us, but probably a big deal for 9 out of 10 of our potential customers or customers. So it's a long way to go to explain what he should do and what he could do and how we could help him. And we have the last mile to help our customers. So the customer is the plumber, or alikes, the service industry. We have the products, we have the sales force, and we have a brand which opens doors. Even if it might be dusty somehow, but it opens doors because it has the trust of our customers. Let's be aware that many people outside and inside our industry still feel like they should look for the nerd and for the guy who is very sophisticated. That's not the guy we're talking to, and that's not the guy who is helping us. And that's the guy who thinks we have no future because he feels like he can do everything himself and he does not understand that others see it differently. So that's our customer, and he will continue to be our customer. The principle is simple. We bring back the good old times to our customers. The function of a yellow page site in the past has now been taken over by a website. You know, in the past you called the guy who had the largest and the most interesting ad. Today you call the one with the best website. That's pretty easy. And we build these perfect websites for him with a clear competitive price point and a clear competitive quality point. And we have heard some guys today who even can help us here to do that even better. With the same quality, we cover Facebook presence, and with the same quality, we still have our own products, our core products. I don't have to tell you what they are. And of course, Google and Facebook campaigns on top of that. And ideally, at the end, it all works together. So our detail page is on Google page number 1. The company's website is on page number 1, the site which we built for him. We also do an SEM campaign for him, and maybe there is and we also do his Google My Business account as well. So ideally, we do that all for him, and he has to do it himself. So we really provide a lot of service to him. And if the company owner wants, he can still buy folders or billboard advertising. Not sure whether that worked, but we all see that in our industry. I mean, I have been asking myself a lot, where has all the money gone which we in the yellow page industry lost in our print business? It hasn't all gone to Google and Facebook. I think it has, to a large extent, just been wasted into stupid advertising, like folders and all kind of non-measurable, not very effective advertising means, or it was just saved by the medium-sized customers who didn't feel comfortable to just do something. So we have to get back and convince the customer from the right products. And here comes the thing. Things are not moving perfectly for us as they could. We still have our legacies. There are still a lot of things which don't go well. The bitter truth is, it is more expensive than we thought, that whole transformation, and it takes much longer than we thought. More of the, and we all know the facts. It's a very, very hard cultural transformation, almost unbearable. We have to fight with cannibalizations if we let loose too much. Our sales force quickly just sells Google if we let them, and we know what the margins are. That's the third problem. We have a big margin problem when we digitalize our business. We do have higher sales costs because of the fact that we need more time with the customer if we do it right. There's more complexity, there is more indirect cost, there is costly systems, there's a lot of cost and a lot of complexity involved. We all know that. And even worse, lots of people telling us, I don't need a website builder from you guys, that's done by my nephew. Google is done by myself because it's so incredibly easy. How can you survive with this costly sales organization? You know, you name it, it's all on the page. And don't forget, that is something which the sales guy who works for us hears 10, 20 times a day from his potential customers or non-customers. So we always have to remind ourselves that that we have a reason to be, and there is a reason to be. But those are the words which we're hearing outside. The problem is, for those who want to still wait a bit, there is sweet poison. You could almost do a correlation between who has migrated and transformed the business towards digital and who has not, and what their profitabilities are. So profitability levels of the guys who still are heavily dependent on print are usually much better than the ones who have transformed their business already. Yeah, easy to understand because print is a very high margin business. But the point is, so the slower I migrate, the longer I keep up nice profitability margins. That's a sweet poison. And the problem is, the dilemma is, the faster I migrate, the faster I'm reducing profit margins, at least temporarily and to a large extent long term as well. But if I don't migrate fast enough, I will eventually go out of business, and the problem is that will be very unpredictably and very uncontrollably, and then we will see decline rates probably in the future which are much higher than which we are seeing today in some markets. So too many of us are speeding and braking at the same time, because shareholders want us to be fast and keep the profits up. And there is no such thing like being fast, migrating fast, growing and keeping profits up. It's just not possible. Everybody who tells you something else is missing out something. Yeah, and why this is the case we will see a bit later as well. So executives under pressure start making mistakes. And I'm telling you the 12 mistakes which I have seen. There are much more than those, but I'm giving 12 examples. The first thing and the most important thing is, too many of us are embarrassed about their product which they're having. Because they don't show pride in the product set. They only hear the bubble voices of their metropolitan neighborhoods. You know, everyone here has heard it in discussions or in talks, in small talks with friends or with people you meet. Oh, you're in the yellow page industry, are you still existing? What are you doing? Telephone book, is that still there? I have never looked at a telephone book for 10 years. And what else are you doing? Is that right? Oh, wow, okay, so you still live? Fine. So the point is, that all is being heard not only by us, but also by our sales guys, by our people. And it's absolutely necessary that we are clear as managers and executives that we trust in what we have, and there's a lot of reason that we trust. And I'd like to say we will never be as innovative as Silicon Valley, never. We don't have the money for that. We will never be as sexy as a Cannes media agency, but we serve the SME best, and that is what we can do better than others if done properly, and I'm a believer in that. The other thing is they don't clearly communicate to their shareholders and to their stakeholders, especially to their shareholders. Transformation will cost margin, and transformation will need investment. Full stop, and no other way possible. If you want to transform your business, you're gonna give up margin and you're gonna spend money. If you don't do that, you eventually will be out of business. And shareholders who want to have both investment and taking out profits which is a contradiction in itself, will with any doubt kill their businesses. Because of that, many of us try to avoid the risk of changing. Because when you change, a lot of things can go wrong. And they do go wrong. We are almost in a situation where we have to set up many or multiple little startup businesses within our own businesses. And by definition, 3 out of 4 startups go bust or don't work the way we want it. And that is a risk for the executive manager, because if you show that things don't work, that's always difficult. And you know, at the end, there is no such thing as a risk-free transformation. But many of us are too afraid of the negative consequences. You have to take the risk. There's no way. There's no other way. And most of us try to save their way out of trouble. They try to save cost, and by that can avoid the hardship of taking risks on the revenue side. But the problem is savings in print to a large extent are already done, or where they are still possible, it's not that big of an amount, so that it does make a difference. Secondly, our organizations per se, especially in the IYP field and others, are already pretty meager anyways if we have done it right in the last couple of years. And most of all, our sales organizations, which are the biggest cost factors, they are here. And there is not much to be done with that, because we need them to sell our products. And then on top of that, we need new guys for website production, for SEM needs, for Facebook needs, and for all the other things where you need people for that. You can think about outsourcing, you can think about optimizing. There are lots of things you can do, of course, but still you need those people. Yeah. And I have the thesis, and the provocative thesis. It's not always and entirely true, but there is a tendency that transformation today means often more, not less people. Don't get me wrong, saving is a very necessary thing to do, and that's the thing to be done in every company, in every industry. But trying to solve the problem solely through regular drastic cost cuttings means entering the death spiral, and I've seen many companies do that. We have to be very careful not to go that path. Problem number 5, this is my biggest, I think the biggest point in all these slides. Many of us are not bold enough in sales force transformation. We all know visiting the customer just once a year with 2 or 3 products doesn't mean we have a customer relationship. Not at all. So we have to change everything. We have to change the way we recruit. We have to change the training big time. We have to change the way we sell. We have to change the way the incentive scheme works. We have to change the way our leadership skills are. We have to have an automatization in our sales talk, because it's too complicated not to do it. And we have to change the sales frequency and the way of the service level we're having. A good motivated sales force is the only real asset we have. So let's be proud of them, and let's really make sure that we treat them, that we treat it right. I'm always concerned, and I'm always offended when I see some of us making these big layoff measures with 1/3 of sales guys being dismissed, 100 sales guys being dismissed in 1 year. Where I'm asking myself, hey guys, what have these sales guys done before? If they haven't sold, why are you all of a sudden firing 100 people? Why haven't you done it before? But if they have sold enough, why are you just firing them? And the problem is, it's part of the death spiral thinking, that by firing these expensive guys, you pump up your profits in 1 year, but you pay the price in the 2nd or the 3rd year, and you have survived another year as CEO with your numbers. But that's not the way I want to lead a business. The other thing is, it's so tempting to sell cheap, easy to sell, seemingly easy to sell products. It's very tempting, because we have a sales force which really can push into the market a lot of products, because they have the relation, because they can sell. But the problem is, if you sell cheap, low-end quality products, you will get a churn which will be dramatic. And that is the problem. And we won't get most probably a second chance to get that customer back because he's trusting us, and if we fail to bring him quality, he will not come back again. The other thing is focus on mass business. We are a mass business. We will not be the guys having fancy, interesting, overly intellectually rewarding products where you can tell over a beer or over a cocktail your customers how fancy the Mercedes-Benz campaign was we are doing for the customer. We are having bread and butter products, which is fine, which is absolutely fine. And secondly, the second problem is we tend to do what others do, and we tend to follow the crowd, of course. That's often the case in many instances. So a good example is that whole Groupon thing which happened a few years ago. You know, who speaks about Groupon today anymore? The other thing is outsourcing. They try to reduce complexity and cost with hasty outsourcing. Nothing against outsourcing, it can make sense. But first of all, don't forget who is your face to the customer. That must be you guys. That cannot be some outsourced company. And secondly, you know, just ask yourself, I mean, we are in such, the complexity is so high and many of us are under so much pressure. Ask yourself, if you can solve a specific problem which is in the core and the heart of what you do as a company, why do you really think someone else can do it better than yourself? It can be, sure, certainly it can be, but ask yourself before you outsource whether it really is the case. Yeah. There is no shortcut to transformation by just letting others do our core job, so be careful. The other thing is automatic renewal of orders is the answer to churn and increasing sales costs. We do have increased sales cost in the time of transformation because the time with the customer will be longer. Yeah, we all know that. Automatic renewal can help us to focus sales, but be aware of three facts. First of all, those customers who accept automatic renewal are most likely those customers who love you, who are fans of you. They are the guys who will have renewed anyways, the guys who you could have increased anyways. So, so there is no real gain in reduced churn because these guys are not the ones who churn. Secondly, our products are changing rapidly, very rapidly. A guy who has bought automatic renewal products, the next year will probably need another product, or in 2 years. So then you unbundle again that automatic renewed product and you sell them a new one. So again, the sales guy who sells a new automatic renewed product gets a higher commission because he sold an automatic renewed product. And that's the third problem. The sales guy will quickly make sure that they really make money on this. Because if you don't reward them for selling automatically renewed products, they will not sell it. But if you reward them, they will find ways to get the reward every year. And if you are not careful, all you are left with at the end are higher sales costs. So be careful with this. Old story, too many of us are using their old print IT systems for the new world. You do need better, or many of us do need better CRM and ERP systems. And these better systems cost a lot of money. Yeah, shareholders listen, that's true. If you don't invest in better ERP and CRM systems, you will be out because you can't handle these amount of customers anymore otherwise. The other thing is the long-term orientation. The funny part is that many people from outside, shareholders and others, want us to act more like these startup companies, to be as dynamic as these startup companies, to have a kicker player in the hall and having fancy little motivational talks and all these things. But what they don't want us is to have the negative cash flows of these guys. Yeah. So we should still make our profits and bring the cash flows, but we should not, but we should be like them. And that's the problem. These guys, and many of these guys are here as well, and I envy that. That's great. You guys are on a growth path. You have the shareholders who tell you, grow. We don't care about cash flows too much today, but we want you to grow. And this is what we do with our new products as well. We are startups within established companies. If we want to grow, we need to have a different approach, and that's a lifetime approach of our customer. So it will not be always the case that we will make money in the first year on a product. We'll sometimes sell a product which only makes money the third year. So what? If the lifetime value is fine and the churn is low, it's all good, but it costs money. And you have to convince people that we need to do that, and that means we need to take a long-term view, and we need to become more like our competitors, more growth-oriented, more risk-taking, a bit less whining. And then the thing is the trust in employees. Yes, we don't have the tech superstars in our teams. We don't have, usually not. We don't have the super career-minded people from Harvard in our teams. We don't have. And we will never get them. It's a fact. So what? We have to motivate people and we have to take them seriously, and we have to work with what we have. And the good thing is these people are down to earth. These people understand our customers. These people are, especially in sales, and these people are salespeople how we want them. So we have motivated and down-to-earth people who understand our down-to-earth customer. That's what we have to bank on. A big learning for many, there is no shortcut to success. We have to work hard to get there. It needs entrepreneurship, a clear mind that we can't rely on other proven models. We need motivated employees and shareholders willing to follow, plus managers, us, bold enough to do it. If not done with passion and diligence, everybody can build a car factory somehow, but the question is, do we get this kind of car or do we get this kind of car? It's about a lot of details to make right. It's a lot of details which we have to manage. It's just not say, you know, we build a car factory. We have to do it right. And if we do it right, we are really, and I always say that, and I'm convinced of that, we are in one of the most fascinating sectors, because we have the last miles to the customers and no one else has that. And a sales force, be it on telesales or be it in field, is a very, very good tool to tell the customers what is sensible for him, what makes sense for him. And we are the only ones who have that sales force. And if we do it right, we're in exactly the right position. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Thomas. From your experience with, I think, 13 years also with Harold, I want to ask the first question. Out of these 12 main topics that you just raised, which would you consider be the most important one that you would consider for us as the first guidance?
Let me phrase two. The first one is to get the culture right. And the culture right means that we have to believe ourselves in the business. We really have to. I do believe in the business because we are a sales-oriented business. We are a people business. We are much more people business than a techie business. We have to believe in that we are sales organizations where we're leading people, and that the people have to trust us and we have to trust them. That's the cultural thing. If you as a manager don't believe in that, your people will sense that and you will ultimately not be successful. Secondly, and that's a more detailed point, that's all around sales. Because we are a sales organization, it has to be perfect on that end, because that's the only point where we are different towards Googles and others. We do understand sales and we do understand how to do it, but then we have to do it really good. As I said in my slide number 5, we have to touch everything: the incentive scheme, the sales talk, the leadership structure, you name it. We have to touch everything and do that really right, precisely right, not just something. And because if we just take something which is not the right thing, we just get the Lada car out of that instead of a Mercedes. And we want to have the Mercedes, not cost-wise though, but at least from the quality. Yeah? And so we have to really take care for our sales organization and have every detail done correctly and right.
Thanks. Do we have questions from the audience? Jesper?
Yes, Thomas, I have a comment and a question.
Thank you.
Well, the comment is that if I was CEO of a Yellow Pages company, which I currently am not, I would love to have you as my chairman. It's
great. Happy to do so.
the way that you look at it from the board perspective must be good for any CEO. The other one is a question. You said, among other things, don't outsource your core activities. So my question is, what is the core activity?
That's a difficult one, and I expected to have the most headwind on this point, because that is a big point happening in our industry. But by the way, if you want to have a talk to the CEO, he's just sitting next to here. Thanks to have you here, Javier. The core of our business, let me phrase it differently. The core is that the customer is with you and he believes you. So the direct customer relation is the thing which you really want to have, and this is what you don't want to give away. I've seen companies, we know it, we have seen company situations which were changing, where an outsourced company was doing, for example, websites. Yeah, that can be good in sometimes, but there was no link in between of an own service or sales member, or let's call it a member of our own company, who took care for the customer. Let's phrase it differently. If a website takes you 1, 2, 3 hours to be built, and we have seen some of the guys who say it's faster, but let's say it's 1, 2, 3 hours, that guy who builds the website is probably the guy who talks most to the customer in a year, compared to anyone else in the company, compared to anyone else. If that is happening, you want to make absolutely sure that that guy who is talking is representing you in the best possible way. That can be done with outsourcing. Yes, in theory that's possible. In practice as well, I guess. But you have to really be careful whom you choose and how you do it. But in most cases, if you just give it to someone and you say, he's doing it, you risk that this is the guy who is representing you, who is now the Yellow Page company, and you don't want to have that. Yeah.
Yeah, I would just comment on what you've just said, actually. And when I left Yale, one of the first companies I worked with was SoLocal. And interesting enough, completely different philosophies. The new regime we had in at Yale thought they could outsource everything and send everything to Manila and Bangalore. And yet at SoLocal, Jean-Pierre took the approach that we're going to service all our websites in-house. And because for that very reason, the person producing that content and copy had the best relationship with the SME. He had customer retention of close on 90%. We at Yale, outsourcing to Bangalore, our customer retention was down in the 50s.
And if you're down, and if you are, let's be honest, if with website churn you are beyond 15 or say 20% to be on the, you're done. Forget it. You never make it. Yeah. So you need to get the quality right, and this is exactly the point. Yeah. And
hello, Bruno from SoLocal. I'm interested to ask you a question about automatic renewal. So you were pointing out there are advantages, and we can understand it makes a lot of sense to make auto renewal on some products. At the same time, you were pointing on disadvantages. But at the end, what would you recommend? Should we do a combination?
That's what we work on. That's exactly the recommendation. The recommendation is first of all to start carefully. That means there are certain products who are naturally almost bound to be auto-renewed. Good example is websites. You sell the website and it's automatically renewed. Ideally, it never ends, of course, because the customer needs his website and he should never churn with you, so it's automatically renewed. That makes sense. Also, low-end classical products, be it print, be it IYP, they make a lot of sense as well, because we all know those low-end products are not the most fancy and not the most rewarding products for the customers. So let's just, leave them out of the equation and the discussion, fix them in an automatic renewal, and see what happens to free up time of the sales force. The more complicated and the more AVO, ARPA high the products tend to be, the more risky it is to do the automatic renewal. Not saying it's not doable. I think it's the path to go, to be honest. It's a path to go because it does free up some sales time. But don't do it too fast. Our experience was in many companies that when you go in with the higher end products quickly, they change too fast. And those customers will be convinced too easy by our sales guys to just do a minor different combination, to again get the higher commission on the other thing. So start with low end and start with websites, which is by nature given, and also, of course, a Google campaign which you do on a monthly basis or whatever. That is also a thing which you can do. And then work your way up. That would be my recommendation. Yeah.
Do we have more questions? Then, yep.
Thank you very much for listening. It was a pleasure.
Thanks a lot, Thomas.